Welcome to the Tradie Wife Life podcast, brought to you by Tradies in Business, where we talk to tradie wives about their goals, their challenges, their hopes and dreams, and how their trade business can help with that. Welcome back, listeners. I'm going to be a little vulnerable here with you today and share that we've had some pretty incredible guests across the two podcasts. And I think today's guest has not done anything. Reading through today's guest bio has left me feeling quite humble, quite overwhelmed with her capacity and her endurance and her ability to take on a challenge. And it's left me feeling a little overwhelmed, I want to say. And so I'm probably not going to do a lot of the talking today, which is what this podcast is meant to be about, somebody else sharing their story. I'd like to introduce you to an amazing woman who, the short 5-minute chat that we do before we actually press record, has already unlocked an idea for our business so that we can help one of our members. We've spoken about one of our members that we can put in touch with her and will lead to some other amazing opportunities, and has been warm and welcoming, maybe super comfortable, even though I might feel a bit nervous. Liesl, thank you so much for being here and joining me today.
You are all the welcome. It's my job to interact with people and do make the most of what we can out of life.
Isn't that the truth? It's something that I think that we forget that we're doing. We tend to be so subconscious in how we come up against or meet and interact with other people. So I think it's a fantastic place to start, Lisa. We'll just go straight into it, but we won't. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about you and what has happened in your life prior to this point that led you to be talking to us here on the podcast today.
Over that, so the big old convoluted story. I think started a big old born in Brisbane. I moved to New Zealand when I was 3 months old and lived for 7 years in a caravan they'd made off the grid. So pretty alternative, ate roadkill, didn't really go to school till we moved back to Australia when I was 7. We lived in a boat shed on Lake Macquarie, one of my godfather's boat shed. We're a really poor family, lived in rented houses. I was the able-bodied kid who was into sport, like this skinny as a beanstalk. Played every sport I could to get out of class, went sailing every afternoon on other people's boats. Played netball, rep netball until I was introduced to basketball. Came in and said, Mum, I'm giving up netball, I'm taking up basketball. And loved basketball and played rep basketball at school. Really had no clue what I wanted to do in my life. Enrolled, started off at uni, a law degree, which then changed into an arts degree and popped out with a science degree. Well, I wanted to be a town planner, but I went and worked as a town planner over the summer and really hated what was going on in the environment. And so I'm like, I'll just do teaching, it'll be handy later in life. But in the meantime, 2 days after my last exam in second year uni, I was riding my mountain bike home from a friend's place, like we were poor, we rode our bikes everywhere, and swerved over the wrong side of the road. My bike hit the gutter. I somersaulted over the handlebars and fell down about 3 meters into a driveway that was parallel to the road, and landed on my bottom, and all the vertebrae in my back sort of collapsed, and my L1, which is belly button height, absolutely disintegrated. And I was really lucky. I was found by an old mate, I have to say a senior lady, now that I'm going to Parliament, senior, whose daughter was a nurse, and she lived over the road, and the nurse came and said, is there any tingling in your hands or feet? And when you hit your funny bone, you get that sensation. I had that through my legs. So straight away I was identified as a spinal cord injury, taken to Newcastle Hospital where they took one off at the x-ray, helicopter to Sydney, went in for a big operation and woke up off the painkillers. Probably about 2 weeks later, they kept me really sedated, to be told at 19 I was never going to walk again. I was going to be kind of on back and bench for 2 months, in a hospital for 6 months, and use a wheelchair for the rest of my life. So that was sort of the start of a wham bam life-changing moment. I didn't have a helmet on. It was before helmet days. Really not sure if helmet would have made any difference because I had land on my bottom, but definitely helmet would have protected me if I landed on my head. And then when I was in hospital, they said, would you like to try wheelchair basketball? And in 1988, November 27, everyone remembers the day of their accident, they said, do you want to try wheelchair basketball? And no one even knew what a Paralympic was back then in 88. And then these 2 really buff wheelchair users came into the hospital, and I'm like, oh, cool, that's cool. Do you want to come wheelchair basketball? By the time I got up again, I had this big ugly back brace on with Velcro straps on the side, and they took me out to Mount Druitt, which is what I perceived from my innocent upbringing, a rough place in Western Sydney where I ended up teaching for 5 years.
Wow.
Into this stadium owned by Wheelchair Sports New South Wales, and I just wheeled in. I just saw there's people in wheelchairs having fun and going fast, and they had cars and jobs and lives and studying and boyfriends and girlfriends. So I thought, oh, this is actually not going to be too bad. And because I already knew the rules of basketball, what actually happens with lots of people with catastrophic accidents as far as sport goes, they come into a new sport sort of at age 6 level, but because I knew the rules, I just had to learn to drive a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls were excited. Was invited to play for New South Wales, and it wasn't too long. I was invited to try it for Australia, and then this is a nutshell speed journey.
Yeah.
And selected to compete in the Barcelona Paralympics. We came 7th. In the next one, Atlanta, we came 4th. City 2000 was amazing because it's in front of the home crowd. We got a silver, backed it up with another silver in Athens, and a bronze in Beijing, and then changed sports to sailing after doing the Sydney to Hobart, and won a gold in London and a gold in Rio. And that's the journey. And then in the meantime, when I changed sports from basketball to sailing, I wasn't driving to Sydney 3 nights a week for training. So I joined the Labor Party because athletes are really selfish, and I just wanted to give back to my community. Never in a schooling years imagined I'd become a member of Parliament. But when the local member of Parliament's letter came to say that she was resigning because she was unwell, I intuitively knew my life was going to change. Plus, sailing was a sport that was taken out of the next Paralympics, so that the punky sports get in and the sports that aren't growing get pushed out. Sailing was out. And so I put my hand up, and now I'm a member of Parliament in the New South Wales Parliament, and been opposition for 6 years, and now we're in government, which is just unreal. That's a crazy short summary. I've never done it in that quick one before.
No, that is the best summary I think we've ever. You've just blown everybody else out of the water. I am just blown away by what you have created through a situation that most people would just fall into the deep despair that would naturally come with that kind of catastrophic injury. And I'm really interested to understand how you were able to shift your mindset, Liesl. It must have been really, like, to wake up and be told at 19 that kind of devastating news. I can't even understand how you first process that information, and then how you get to the point where you think, you know what, I'm going to go and play basketball.
No, it just was. I don't know. And I just wonder, like, we grew up, as I said before, we did lots of rental properties. We had to deal with all this change, and like living in caravan, change. You wonder if that's got something to do with it. Plus, I was in Sydney, and my family and support network were in Newcastle, and it was unreal. Like through the Petadine haze, the number of people that came down and spent time with me and supported me there, I really felt like I was absolutely supported, regardless of what was going on in my body. I was intellectually and emotionally really. Mum gave up her job and came and lived in the nurses' quarters. Like, I was absolutely supported. And the staff in the hospital were just unreal. Like, I had a role in hospital. We all had to lie in bed, flat on our backs. So I had a little foam ball, and I got the flat ribbon from my flowers, and I used to shovel all these in a cup with the foam, wedge the foam ball, and I used to peg it because everyone else had a broken back as well. So I just had to lie there. These days they put rods and things in people's backs, but we just had to wait. So I just peg the lollies around the ward. Like, I just had a good time. And then I was also really determined. And I think I was also really lucky. A lot of people have their injury at a different time in life. I was really at a formative stage. So I wasn't a builder, and I wasn't a lawyer, and I wasn't a teacher. So I really still had a pathway that my identity wasn't changed. Like, I was a wheelchair user, but my workplace identity, so many people attach it, were really not that flexible about that, wasn't changed. So I was really able to evolve myself as a human being and adapt to an identity. I thought I was going to be an environmentalist off the front of the rainbow warrior, but when you've got a wheelchair underneath you, that doesn't work too well. So
No.
I did teaching because I thought it would be handy later in life, and got a targeted graduate position in the accessible school, which in my rep basketball time, like, I put a gym into each of the schools that I taught in. I had a basketball training before school every morning. Like, I was so enthusiastic. I remember one day I went down to train early in the morning, and the cleaner didn't come in, and no one else came. And then I realised I was training. It was Saturday. I didn't even have to go to work.
So I'm taking from that, you just kind of focused on the next thing rather than being focused on what was behind you, because the injury is behind you. Yes, it's going to impact your everyday life.
Really, and I think I don't know, that maybe that's how I've always lived, but like, in the job that I'm in now, you can't do anything about what's happened. You can only make improvements for the future. And my job really is the moment. Like, I can't do anything about tomorrow's calendar till I get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
like I can do the preparation I need to do, but I can't change what's happening. So it's just it's really about today and now and what we can do at this moment to be the person we want to be and do the work put the things in place that will make the difference for tomorrow.
That's incredible.
Also the life of an athlete, like the work you have to do, like the Paralympics is on every 4 years, but you have to do the work today because you're committed to something that's in the future. But it's the work that you do today that really is the stuff that makes the difference in the future.
Can we talk about that preparation, Liesl? Can you help us understand, like that's quite, I think, a foreign concept for lots of people unless they've been involved in the sports or unless they have a goal that they're working towards. And most of us don't. We can be quite absent-minded around what we're doing, or our goal might be quite loose, like, oh, I want to pay off the house. There's no boundary around that of when it might happen. It's just I'm working to pay off the house. When you have something like the Olympics coming up, you have a very defined hard deadline of when you need to be ready for. So that's obviously then needs to frame out what the preparation looks like for you. Can you explain that process?
It's interesting. And one guy came and did a PhD study on me very early in my career and talked about a periodized training program, which is absolutely the normal thing to use in sport now, which is actually looking at, winter and summer and when the sporting season's on, and then when you need to do your muscle training, when you need to do your fitness training, and where you fit that other thing. And I think also another important thing for me has been writing those goals down.
Yeah.
And I've got an encyclopedia of training diaries that one day someone will go, oh, we need to do a study on this one. We just kept playing sport and playing sport and playing sport. But I've got such a huge collection of training diaries of just putting those incremental goals. Like I say, the paying off the house is something that will happen in 25 years. But what's going to happen this month and next month and this year? And what does that little reward look like? What does that big fee look like on what you actually do? And I even said to one of my colleagues the other day, at the end of the school year, I used to write myself a Christmas card with the good work I've done at school because nobody really cares what you do. But I knew, like, I worked hard and I want to make a difference in kid life, so I just write myself a Christmas card.
That's fantastic.
Thanks for doing your stuff because I'm a bit of a writer downer.
Yeah.
Actually, if you look in the desk in front of me, there's it's always got lots of ideas on post-it notes in various shapes and forms and chaos written down.
I absolutely love the acknowledgement of where we've been. It's something that none of us consciously do frequently enough. We've built stuff into our coaching program for that exact reason, for the opportunity for acknowledgement. How did I go this month? Did I achieve what I set out to achieve? If I fell down somewhere, what can I do to improve it for next month? Or I achieved all of that? Was I able to even push forward and do a little bit more? Or did I just manage to hang on by the skin of my teeth? And that's okay sometimes. And I think that opportunity for reflection is something we deny ourselves. And yet we're all working so hard every day in this thing called life to get where we would like to go, but we don't acknowledge what we're doing along the way.
Absolutely. Take some time to write yourself a little Christmas card. I actually thought of it in the context of the Member of Parliament now. I'm writing stuff down about, these are the things that I've ticked off along the way. And I'm also a obsessed saver of any gratitude. Like as a Member of Parliament, sometimes people forget to have too much gratitude, but we've got a gratitude wall, I've got a gratitude shovel, I've got a gratitude file, just because on those days, and this comes through sport as well. Mm-hmm. We used to take something that was really good and that you're doing in sport, and if there was a moment or a really good training session, you'd take that and you put it in your hand and put it in your pocket. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of days where you don't have those really good things, and you've got to remember that your pocket is really filled up with amazing things that you've done along the way in your trade, running your business, in your house, bringing your kids up, in your netball, wherever you're doing those additional things. Your pocket is actually really full of amazing contributions that you've got to hold on to when the days are a bit darker.
Well, that's you were dropping all of the gold today, like an Olympic champion should. Liesl, you are not just an Olympic champion, you're a champion of the people. And I feel as though that is what has led you to the opportunity that you now have as a Member of Parliament. Can you talk to us a bit about, I guess, your journey with where you've come from? I mean, clearly you were living with some lack when you were a child with your parents. It was a different upbringing than many of us have experienced, perhaps not privileged in some ways, and I would suggest very privileged in some other ways. Yeah,
absolutely.
And generally not the kind of privilege that in everyday society now we look at and consider to be privileged, and yet it's the elusive stuff that most of us are actually working towards: time, balance, spending lots of that with our loved ones.
Things in life and nature. Yeah.
100%. And yet we come about that in some very challenging ways, that's for sure. And I'd really just like to understand how, I don't know that we can even unpack this in the half an hour that we have. You have an amazing mind that's apparent to me very quickly. Not only did you come through what others would typically call a more challenging childhood, a less stable childhood, perhaps, in some ways. I just really want to acknowledge in some ways, this is just what the general public perhaps would be thinking. You've then gone through the most catastrophic event that would happen to most of us and come out of the other side as a champion. As I said, not just an Olympic champion, but a champion of the people. You have this real connection to people, and you also then have the ability to reflect that back to them. But I would suggest at a larger point as well, within what you're doing within Parliament, you're reflecting back the amazingness that is people so that we can open the doors to some other opportunity. Can you tell us a little bit about, how you feel that has worked for you? Maybe a bit of an ambiguous question.
Yeah, no, I'm just really complimented by those lovely words. I said before, you don't get all the compliments too often when you're in this job, but I just feel, I think the privilege I've had of living in Australia with this injury and the opportunity I've had as in the sporting nation, even someone with a disability, like back in the old days, we weren't that recognised, but I think Sydney 2000 was an absolute tipping point, having the Paralympic Games. And I think people said, instead of saying what's wrong with that lady, we packed the kids. Like previously in Barcelona or Atlanta, the stadiums weren't full. So we opened up, and I was part of the education program, to have a ticketing program where $20 got you in the gate. So every single game was in front of packed houses. Instead of saying what's wrong with that lady, the kids said, what does that person play?
Yeah.
All of a sudden there's a shift from disability to ability.
Yeah.
I think that's I don't know, like subconsciously, that's a really beautiful lift for people who were disabled. So we really have been part of like a privileged part of Paralympics, who've been part of Australian sporting for a culture. I never really thought about it like this. Now you're making me go deep on the inside. But also in that sporting background, like I said about the things you put in the pocket. When I first started playing, we didn't have a National Women's League. So we got together a whole bunch of them. We made a National Women's League, and that's sort of going strong. So that's in our pocket of goodness. And then the other thing you realise, I'm a person with a disability, and especially through Sydney 2000, we had a voice. We had to go and promote these games to people. So we got people in there. So I've got a voice to be able to talk about the games and a platform, which then gave me a voice. And then you realise, as a high school teacher, you've got a disability, and you're actually advocating for a lot of more people with other disabilities, because all I really know about is paraplegia. So I've done a master's in special ed because I'm advocating for people with intellectual disabilities.
Yep.
And you realise it's a bigger conversation about inclusion in society. And it's not just like when there's inclusion of people with disabilities, inclusion of the LGBT community, inclusion of Aboriginality, it really makes me feel warm and fuzzy when I see any aspect of disadvantaged section of the community being included. And so when I put my hand up to run for Parliament, I just I did a whole bunch of door knocking. Only 3 people said, "Oh, but you can't do that because you're in a wheelchair." But because I was already Paralympian, I was like, "Oh, yeah," like there was no question that I can do it. So to come into the Parliament as a wheelchair user, it's like, oh, bloody hell, the Parliament's not very accessible. That bloke looks down his nose at me and says, "Oh, it's the oldest Parliament in Australia." There's a lady in that chair over there, and I'm going to be covered in this Parliament. I'm still fighting about access in the Parliament. But I think that the conversation is the privilege of being an athlete and being in the spotlight that I had has given me a voice to take on and be brave enough to be the voice that not that many people with disabilities actually have.
So why do you think that we're still battling so much to have comprehensive inclusion?
Oh.
It's a big question.
Ready? So, and I'm doing quite a lot of work. I'm now called a regional champion of parliamentarians with disabilities. And this is about, like, I just got elected in Parliament because I'm me, not because I've got a disability.
Yeah.
But trying to get more people into political parties with disabilities and trying to get more people into parliaments across the Commonwealth with disabilities, because we are 20% of the population. And we don't have leaders. And that's what I said, like, it's really important. Role models. Where's the role? Like, it's fantastic. You know, we've got Kurt Fairley, we've got Dylan Alcott, we've got Maddie Di Rosario, because you've got to see it to believe it, and you've got to be it. And then where are the people with disabilities on our boards? Where are the people with disabilities that are in our mainstream advertising around it? We'd see Dylan on the billboard now, but we haven't historically seen that.
No.
And nor have we had inclusion in schools on the same level that we have. So in Canada, we've had much more inclusion in schools starting from the 70s. So in Canada, there's much more inclusion in the workforce as well. So I actually believe the kids that were sitting there watching me at the games in 2000 were the kids. And now they're the employees, but they will be the employers of the future. And the kids that are sitting beside kids with disabilities in their classrooms will have no issues. Like, they're not necessarily going to be sitting at the parliament putting through legislation, but they might be making some cup of teas, they might be cleaning the parliament, but they'll have a job as opposed to just doing some entertainment things that get paid by taxpayers' money just to be entertained. Whereas human beings, like, people with disabilities can participate in all sorts of ways that we don't give them credit for. But I just think it's a social bias that is going to come with time of people seeing, and the NDIS has been great because people with disabilities are now out and about in a way they haven't been before. So we're starting to see, we may not feel comfortable, but we're starting to see people with disabilities, oh my God, to be interacting and doing stuff in the community, going on holidays and activities, and also hot air ballooning. We've now got accessible hot air ballooning in New South Wales.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, you're not getting me up in that.
It's unreal. You should put it on the bucket list.
Everybody tells me it's great. I'm terrified. Liesl, do you ever rub up against some, perhaps I would call it outdated thinking, where you have the opportunity to share perhaps some of your experience, and then how do you do that? Like, that would be, it's a point of friction, right?
It is challenging, and calling it out is really important. But you do, I mean, even just the masculinity stuff, like the disability stuff, like, you've got to choose your battles every day, and you can't be having a fight every single day.
Yeah.
And it's really quite interesting. I hosted when we were going to Canberra for the March for Justice, and then I thought, you know what, I need to have one on the Central Coast. So in about 5 days, we put together this March for Justice on the Central Coast. We could only have 500 women because it was COVID thing. We got like 498 women. It was unreal. And my beautiful lady who was doing my media at the time, Kajal Maharaj's Fijian Indian, she's absolutely gorgeous. But she put a little bit about the pale stale male conversation in the video. And I got this horrible letter from one of my constituents who wrote to me about what a great job he's doing because he's on the board and he's helping women grow up. It was so derogatory. And I read it and I thought, you know what, I can't write back to him because there's just no words. But I had a conversation with him on the phone and I thought, you know what, sometimes there's a generation that are going to have to pass away.
Yes.
Challenging reality is, like, he ain't got any clue about his privilege and about the position and about the communication. But there's also a lot of amazing men working beside us. And I think that's and also there's amazing members of Parliament now. Interestingly, people said, you should be the Minister for Disability. No, I shouldn't, because I can be much forceful with every single portfolio.
Yes.
If I just do the wheelchair stuff for the disability, I'm all over there, just the wheelchair lady does the wheelchair stuff. No way. The wheelchair lady's got to make sure everybody's inclusive. And like I said before, like, it's about being with people and making the most of every opportunity. And that's sort of the framework of my life and how I live.
Yeah, I can
not necessarily answer your question, but
no, that's perfect.
Some of those place. But also, I think the experiences that we have, like in the New South Wales Parliament, I'm in the Legislative Assembly, which is the lower house. There's 93 of us from all walks of life. And you get into the Parliament, your experience, people say, oh, so what's it like? I said, I played for 5 years professionally in the men's league in Spain and Italy and France. Mate, the Parliament's not as wild as playing wheelchair basketball against the macho Southern Europeans, I can tell you right now.
No, I don't actually.
I was sort of prepared, but it does make me a little bit astonished when I look across the other side of the chamber. It really is lawyers in blue suits. Like, it isn't representative. And that's the frustration. I think I joined the Labor Party. We really are a cross-section of diversity, and we're 50% women, which is the first time in the New South Wales Parliament, first time in the federal Parliament. Like, who would think that in 2023?
Yeah, it's crazy.
On the front bench. But it's so important that we have a diversity in the Parliament, and people need to think about that. Like, it's not something that people think I need to have a diversity in the Parliament, but it's really nice for people in the community to know that person represents me.
Yes.
And even when I first got elected, I was sitting right in this chair, naive me, answering the phone at 7 o'clock at night. You don't do that anymore. I still answered at 5:30 the other night, and I've got a person on the floor. But at like 7 o'clock at night, a blind man from Orange ran up and said, thank you for being there in the Parliament.
Oh, wow. That's so touching.
That and it's, once again, we've got to see it to believe it. I work with a fantastic Laotian man, a Chinese Australian. It's just fantastic to see diversity and heroes.
Yes.
For young people, where there's role models where you can actually be that in the future. And I've got your back.
Yeah, it's so important. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Lisa, I'd like to bring this around to a business mindset. So perhaps as my final question to you today, as business owners, we have the opportunity to create inclusive workplaces. And I think that thought in itself could be quite challenging to many of our listeners. So I'd love to ask you, how do we create an inclusive workplace? What can we do specifically to ensure that we are being inclusive of the entire community?
Right. First of all, don't be shy about your own situation, because a lot of us have got hidden disabilities that we don't have conversations about. And it's really interesting in my role. I meet someone who is now working in the disability sector and talks about this disability, who've been discriminated against in their previous life and didn't talk about their disability. There, it's like, let's all be out and open and come to work as our authentic selves.
Yes.
And if you come to work as your authentic self, it makes it so much easier. And I think that the good starting point about being inclusive, lots of us have got members of our family from different backgrounds to different challenges, and being true to them and acknowledging their truths, I think is super important. But also not being prejudiced in reaching out when we're employing someone or we're interacting with people. We're human beings in Australia. We're one of the most multicultural countries in the world. Like, don't be shy to get to know people for exactly who they are. Like, I've got beautiful Han Lee, who works in the office, who comes from a Vietnamese background. I've got Nat, who's visually impaired, who's amazing, who's worked with Bill Shorten on disability policy, who I met at meditation to start with, and they're now part of my team, which adds so much more. Emily's got a Mauritian background, and it's also really interesting watching people in Woi Woi, which is still a bit white Anglo-Saxon, walk up the front steps of my office when Kajal was here. Kajal's obviously quite brown. It's like you can see them removing their prejudices. But I think I'm now educating community about what a future community looks like. And it's not necessarily Woi Woi, but that's in much more multicultural parts of the city. And that's my job also as a leader, to take people on this journey and be the person who's a bit different and not be scared to give it a crack.
Can it be uncomfortable at times? Like, as we said before, sometimes you're rubbing up against some really outdated thinking. And so part of your responsibility, I guess, with your role is to try and challenge some of that thinking where you can. As you rightly identified, some of those people just need to pass away because, that's not going to change. They're very firm in their thinking. And I can imagine at times it must be quite confronting for you as business owners even. There's opportunity for us to feel uncomfortable. And it's maybe what I'm trying to get to here is it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and ask you the question, how do you manage that when you feel?
And you know what? I'm not. We're doing this on a Zoom that's only on the radio, but I'm holding the glamorous leg up where I've got this unglamorous artificial, like the plastic orthotic on my leg. I wear built-up shoes, which are a little bit uncomfortable. Ask people about it, and it was interesting. Beautiful Naz Campanella, who's the ABC presenter, went in and she knew it was going to be okay at the interview when the ABC said, "What adjustments do you actually need?"
Love it.
What adjustments do you need? Try up. And she said, "Oh, I actually knew it was going to be great." And not like, "Oh, good, we got someone who can't see. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What adjustments do you need?" Like, she's an amazing human being. And people with disabilities stay longer.
Yes.
Well, and added diversity. And I might close with this one. One of my mate's girlfriends is mute, and she is an animator, and she applied for a job at Disney, and Disney, she got the next level, and she typed in, say, "Can I do my next interview by typing because I don't speak?" And Disney said yes, and she's one of the best employees. She doesn't know anyone. That's a job. And then another mate of mine runs a insurance company for festivals, a big day out, those things. One of the guys autistic. He doesn't have to look up any of the old quotes. He remembers them all. Like how?
What a fantastic skill.
And even, ready, I sailed in the Sydney to Hobart with the team with disabilities. The blind sailors by far the best sailors at night. The guys with no legs on the foredeck of the boat smashing through Bass Strait, they had no legs to get washed out from underneath them. The guy with 4 elbows and 7 3/4 fingers, he's a tech guru, the navigation. Like, it's just, there's no limits. Like, we're just human beings. You just got to give us a go.
Yeah, absolutely. We just all need to play to our strengths and concentrate on the strengths that we do have and worry less about the things that we don't.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Liesl Tesch, it has been an absolute joy to spend some time with you this morning. Thank you so much for joining me. If our listeners would love to get in touch and have a chat with you or follow you on social media, where can they find you?
Liesl Tesch MP member for Gosford, and just Google me, you'll find me. But it's a tricky spelling, Liesl Tesch.
We'll make sure we've got
on the social
police.
And also, don't be scared of reaching out and contacting government. We are your representative. You elect us to represent you. So it's actually my job to represent my 60,000 voters in the New South Wales Parliament. And as is everybody across Australia, have got members, representatives at local government, state government, also federal government about issues or concerns. And as MPs, we're always asking people to put in community consultation, rah, rah, rah. It's really hard to get people, but don't be shy. It can be grotty dot point. Seriously, you could see the email. Some people don't know how to use the full stop, but that's fine. We can ring them up and ask them all questions. But please don't be shy of reaching out, because it's our job. We are servants to you guys. We're servants.
I wish everybody was as open as you, Liesl.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. Listeners, you can find all of the details in the show notes if you'd like to reach out.